Hey, hi, hello, Derek Parker, DP, draft analyst, writer, video maker, what have you. So sorry it's been so long. Was not anticipating any type of hiatus. I was out at NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. Was planning on vlogging that. Had way less time than I anticipated, so didn't get that around. Then got back and general life things got in the way, but we're back. Should be back on weekly releases now. Going to be doing my first 2024 NBA draft piece today. Going to be a way too early mock. Just going to do the first 14. If you're here from the future telling me how bad it is, you can save your breath. I don't need to know. I already realize it's probably very different than what is actually going to happen. Not only do these preseason rankings rarely work out, I am admittedly not the best evaluator of high school tape or talent, but I do think it's going to be a fun little video and a way to kind of informally introduce some of the 2024 class. For the order, I've decided to do a tankathon roll. It's not perfect and obviously won't be close to the actual order. There are simply too many variables to account for this far out, but I do think it's generally pretty solid, so we are going to rock with it. But all that to say, if you're mad your team is here, take it up with Tankathon. First up, one team I don't think anyone should be surprised to see here, the Washington Wizards with the first overall pick. After a hard reset, I think they're a lock to be the worst team in the NBA, but a few top picks should get them back on track pretty quickly. First overall, I have them selecting Ron Holland, who is set to play for the G League Ignite this upcoming season. A 6'8" forward, most simply, I think Holland is a decent step ahead of the rest of the players in this class at the moment, and I think the expert rankings reflect that. He's got that quick twitch style of dribble driving, above average NBA athleticism, a pretty solid handle at 6'8", and is an outside threat, all things that will make him a capable number 1 or number 2 scoring option for both the Ignite and an NBA team down the line. And his claim to fame may very well end up being his defense, which is next level and certainly projects to be strong at any level of basketball. I think it will be hard to dethrone him for the number 1 spot, so Wizards adding the top talent here, not that they would have been drafting for fit anyways, although based on their new draft philosophy, I do think they'll like a few of these other guys too, namely Buzelis and Rissa Shea. Not a team position that I totally agree with, but again, take it up with Tankathon, Detroit selecting at number 2. I think the Pistons are set to be quite a bit better this year with their new dynamic duo of Cunningham and Ivy. If they did land the second pick, however, I think coming away with Justin Edwards would be perfect for them. A perimeter-oriented 6'7" wing who is slated to play for Kentucky this season, Edwards feels like a strong all-around option on the wing. He's pretty comfortable from range, has the size and confidence to make a ton of shots, and has just enough juice putting the ball on the floor to counter. He's going to be a really good defender with great footwork and swarming tendencies. Alongside playmakers like Cunningham, Ivy, and Azar Thompson, I think Edwards would be a perfect fit and the best available here. Selecting third overall is the Charlotte Hornets, a potentially likely outcome, and I have them taking potential top pick Matas Buzelis, who's coming from Sunrise Christian and set to play for the Ignite. At 6'11", Buzelis is one of the more interesting prospects in this entire cycle. He's essentially a wing with an immensely lengthy frame and some guard tendencies too. He's got a great shooting form, is already a really advanced shot maker for his age, and seems to have really great feel for the game that most players his size simply don't have. He's exceptionally smooth and has some defensive juice too with his frame. There's been some outlets advertising him as a potential 6'11" point guard. I have a really hard time seeing that. He'll really need to improve his speed, athleticism, and handle for me to get there. But him not being a point guard doesn't deter him as a prospect to me at all. He'll be able to handle the ball plenty as a wing. With that in mind, I think Charlotte would be a great fit. They've got LaMelo Ball at point guard and just swung on a secondary handler, creator, shooter in Brandon Miller. Buzelis would make a great three-headed trio that can all handle, shoot, pass, and create off the bounce some. That iteration of Charlotte would be really fun to watch. Another plausible spot, San Antonio picking 4th overall. They've got a ton of potential talent, but are going to need some time to figure things out and give their young guys a lot of minutes. Luckily for them, here they are grabbing who is so far my favorite guard prospect in this draft, Isaiah Collier out of USC. Collier is a 6'4" point guard who has a perfect and even blend of skills, athleticism, handle, pace, passing, shot making, shooting. To me, there are only a few areas he's truly elite, 99th percentile in, but he's above average to good at nearly everything, making him a really strong point guard prospect. He's a good passer and looks to get others involved, but at his core is a solidly built scorer who can patchwork his way to the basket with sneaky speed, dribble moves, good pick and roll navigation, pace, and more. I think he'd be absolutely perfect next to Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio, functioning as the primary ball handler who can go get his own bucket or facilitate, but he's got a pure enough shooting stroke that he could play off of Wemby, off of Jeremy Sohan, and more, to super fun fit there. At number 5 overall, the Houston Rockets pick conveys to Oklahoma City via the Chris Paul trade. Honestly, this probably has a decent chance of happening with the additions of Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks, and Ben Thompson, but it might not be right at 5, likely somewhere in the 7 to 12-ish range. Regardless, 5th overall, I have Oklahoma City selecting Zachary Rissachet of France, and based on past draft philosophy, I think this is as perfect a fit as they come. He measured 6'9.5" in shoes and is another one of these lengthy, do-it-all forward-esque prospects who has extreme potential. He's really fluid, has a decent perimeter game, and can operate with the ball in hands too. He's not an elite self-creator just yet, but his size and feel give him a leg up, especially defensively as a rim protector with mobility. He's likely going to be a developmental swing, but OKC hasn't been shy about taking those at all recently with the similarly profiled Ousmane Dieng, and reportedly liking Bilal Coulibaly in 2023. He could be a long-term forward or a small ball center option alongside SGA, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and the other Thunderers. We have Portland selecting 6th overall, and I have them taking one of my favorite prospects in this draft, Thierry Darlan. Formerly a member of the NBA Academy Africa, and a soon-to-be member of the G League Ignite. Darlan, at 6'7", is a guard-wing hybrid who has a knack for long-range shooting and shot-making. He's got a great and projectable shooting stroke, and has already shown plenty of tough shot-making on tape. Typically, those things aren't going to get you more than a late lottery grade in my personal book, but I actually think Darlan has snappy enough movement both with the ball in hands and defensively that he's really intriguing to me. It's a work in progress with his current handle, but I think he's going to have some legit on-ball skills down the line, at least enough coupled with the shooting, making him potentially more than meets the eye as a prospect. So in my mind, Portland would be going best available here in a two-way perimeter-oriented wing to pair with Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. I am pretty positive he won't end up going this high. There's only so much production to go around on his team, and this would be the 3rd Ignite member selected in the top 6, but I really like Darlan's game. He just pops to me, so I'm going with my gut here. It might not even be next season, but I think he'll be a really strong two-way wing down the line at some point. 7th overall, we have San Antonio making another selection, this time via the Raptors pick, which they acquired, I believe, from the Jakob Poeltl trade just last season. And after grabbing Collier at 4, we have them nabbing Cody Williams here at 7. At 6'8", Williams is a do-it-all forward who has a really connective feel about him. He signed on to play with Colorado in college. I'm not totally sure his stats are going to scream top pick, but I think he's going to be really impactful to winning basketball there. So if the scoring numbers do look good enough, he could absolutely end up here. He's got a decent blend of handle, speed, and fluidity. He has good mid-range touch and a believable outside game. Most importantly, he feels really cerebral and is a pretty involved passer. Defensively, he employs all the same things. And for the Spurs, who in this scenario would have epicenters in Victor Wembanyama and Collier, I think those connective skills would make a ton of sense. Another team who I really think could make the jump to late lotto play-in range is the Orlando Magic, but here they're selecting at number 8. I have them taking Izan Almanza, another G League prospect. Crazy, I know, but they really did land a ton of talent in this class. It won't turn out this way, but with no knowledge of how things will turn out, it really does feel like currently they own a handful of lottery guys. Honestly, I don't totally know who to draft for Orlando. They're pretty set at guard and forward. This move did make some sense to me for a few reasons. Almanza is a 6'10" big who has a ton of international accolades for his age. He's insanely coordinated for his size, has good run and jump ability for a big, is a great interior scorer, good defensive timing, and should be mobile enough to be versatile on defense. And to top it all off, he's got great positional passing chops. He could be a fun center option for Orlando, potentially the only position they somewhat need right now. I'm not sure if he's a long-term starting center option or not as of right now, but he'd at least offer some fun big wrinkles next to Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr., and would fit well into their jumbo style with his connectivity. Ninth overall, we have Utah selecting Stephen Castle, who is set to play for UConn this upcoming season, and another guy who has claim to potentially being the best guard in this class. At 6'6", Castle is a jumbo point guard who thrives on pace and control rather than speed or athleticism. He's got a great ambidextrous handle, good touch from all over, and is going to be one of the better passers, I think, in the class. And to top it all off, his jumper looks really smooth. I can't totally tell based off high school tape, but he seems like he's going to function well off screens and in the pick and roll, which would make him a great modern guard option. He would likely be Utah's point guard of the future, and with forward and center positions filled, I think he'd be a great juxtaposition next to Keontae George in the backcourt, should that selection pan out. After surrendering their own pick to OKC at 5, we do actually have Houston making it out with pick number 10 and selecting UConn's Donovan Clingan, back-to-back Huskies here. The Rockets have had an interesting offseason, and they also have an overabundance of talent, making this a tricky selection. Depending on how their season goes, they might not be in position to draft for fit, but I'm going to do so anyway because I like their young core, so I've drafted a big. Clingan is 7'2", very much a traditional style center, but he's going to be an absolute force in those few areas: interior scoring and defense, rebounding. He's going to have a real impact via blocking shots, but he's mobile enough to have some drop coverage in his game too. Houston has a ton of potential hyper scorers: Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, but they lack some of the high floor or high ceiling defensive prospects, and I think Clingan would be really strong there and could be a fit next to Alperen Şengün too. 11th overall, we have Indiana, another team I'm not totally sure what to do for them without seeing where they're at in the upcoming season. On paper, they're set at point with one of the best in the league in Hallie. Mathurin is a great backcourt fit. They just drafted a forward in Jarris Walker and have other veteran pieces intermingled. They've got Miles Turner at the 5, but with him on a slightly different timeline, I've got them drafting Alex Sarr here as a long-term center option alongside Walker in the front court. Despite being a phenomenal defender, I think Walker can look a little stiff and rigid at times, whereas Sarr, hovering somewhere around 7 foot give or take, is a highly coordinated, elastic adjacent center who's going to have some interior scoring and rim protection chops. Again, I think he would be a great juxtaposition of athleticism, and Sarr would offer Halliburton a lengthy weapon to go to as well. It would be a slight swing, being that he's not totally a 5 or potentially even a 4, but one that I'm all for Indiana pushing the chips in on. At number 12, we have New Orleans selecting lightning-quick Kentucky combo guard DJ Wagner. NOLA's a good basketball team. They're set at point guard, forward, center, they're deep. They addressed shooting in 2023. Hopefully they're not even in this draft position, so I've just gone with best available. Wagner is a 6'3" combo guard who most seem to think shades a hair more towards point guard, at least for Kentucky this season. He's exceptionally quick, can go 0 to 60, has great touch around the rim, in the mid-range, and a projectable shooting stroke that should help him lean into shooting guard qualities too. Plenty of experts I trust have him higher than this. I think he'll need to really improve in a few areas to get there: strength, decision-making, defense, but I definitely see the vision for how good he can be, and I think he'll see plenty of good production at Kentucky. At 13, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I have them taking Duke's Tyrese Proctor, a rare case of both best available and best fit. Proctor, a 6'5" point guard, is one of the best returning players in the country and is set to take on a decent amount of production for the Blue Devils. He's a pass-first guy, 116 assists to just 57 turnovers as a freshman, and he has all the tools in his arsenal to become a decent scorer too. His scoring efficiency was not great in year 1. If he can bump those numbers up, especially on the perimeter, he's a lock to be a first-round pick and likely one of the top guard options in the class. Alongside the likes of Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert, Proctor would be a great facilitating guard that wouldn't need the ball too much and would elevate all of their games even more. And last but certainly not least, we have the New York Knicks, who in this scenario are inheriting the 14th overall pick via Dallas. I have them taking a gamble on soon-to-be Baylor Bear Jacoby Walter. A 6'6" shooting guard, Walter might just be my favorite prospect of the role player-esque tier. He has a pristine jumper, near perfect mechanics, a high release, and he's got some size to see those shots go through. I think he's going to get his fair share of shots off in the 2-guard role at Baylor, and I think that production will carry him far. Even more, he's really athletic, has enough in his bag handle-wise to counter closeouts, and I'm betting he showcases some fun on-ball stuff every so often and packs a defensive punch too. I'd love him as a swing for New York, who to this point might just need more good basketball players in general. that is it for this one. Let me know what you thought of the video, who your team drafted, who you wanted your team draft, who you draft, who you think is missing from the video. I did want to say there are a few players that I left off due to various injury concerns and stuff like that. So until next time.